who knows? Maybe I'll start doing a travel show too.
In another life, I want to be you, Jeff.
No, you don't. No, you don't. At least not this age of me. Everything seems to kind of fall off and break right now. So
leaking oil.
Yeah, leaking something. I'll tell you that. So, okay, we're on a different platform too. We're using a new platform. So if it looks a little bit different and it gives you a little bit different feel, it's because we're trying something new today, a new streaming. So hopefully it's good, and we're still going, what's this button for and what does this do? So, and no, this doesn't have to do anything to do with me spilling my coffee all over all my equipment. This is a software program that we're using and trying. So give us some idea what you think about the new look or the feel, and maybe this is something we'll continue to use. Got a lot of to cover today. We're covering two different leagues. We're going to talk about playoffs coming up, and we're going to cover the NCDC and the NA3HL. So, of course, we did a preview. I don't know if we did a preview. What do we call that? We actually covered all the leagues and talked about the leagues a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Our last podcast, we took the USHL and the EHL and did that league.
Yeah, we've already talked about the NCDC once a few weeks ago. I just can't remember what the context was.
It was just kind of we had talked about them early in the year, especially after they did their Beantown Classic, and we talked about it then, and then we just did kind of an update on where the standings were and which teams were climbing up or maybe falling down a little bit more. So it was more of just like a pulse check on where things are within that league. And we try to do that, for all these different leagues as the season goes on, because there is change, and sometimes there's no change, but there's usually change in the middle of the pack for sure.
So we're going to do this for every league. We're doing two at a time. Last week we did a couple. This week we're doing the NA3HL and the NCDC. And I'm still reeling about my mistake on last night's live broadcast where I watched it again too. The Colorado girls program. I was like, what did I see girls when it said grid in front of me? So those that weren't on the broadcast, you can go pull it up. Oh, by the way, I put a meme on that. I don't know if you noticed that or not. Did you go and look at it today?
No, I mean, for me, it's only 9 o'clock in the morning, so there's not a whole lot of things I've been doing.
Isn't that supposed to be the fourth hour of your business day when it's 9 o'clock in the morning? Come on.
I'm still trying to get through my first cup of coffee, and
I'm going to show you the new meme. Show everybody the new meme. I'm feeling good about using memes right now. We've got to do more memes. So I'm going to pull it up here, and then I'll show it to you. I think you'll like it. You might like it, you might not. But
the other thing we got to talk about is just some of our predictions that we had last week with the USHL and just kind of how things have shaken out. So once you get that meme up, we can kind of dig into that.
Well, let's not put too much pressure on me here. This is, I still have. It still takes me time to do things. Maybe not as quick as you are, but All right, now I've just got to find my live. Okay, there it is. I'm going to pull it up on the screen so you can see it, and I will do that right now. I think I'll do it right now. Yeah. Entire screen. That's what we want.
I like when we're using a new streaming platform. We go off the grid right off the start.
Well, we got to, because this is cool. So there's our new not a meme. Did I call it a meme?
You did, yes.
Oh, it's a thumbnail. It's a thumbnail. Anyway,
you're still working through some things. I get it.
That's my thumbnail, man.
What's a GIF? What's a GIF?
And do you see what the guy's got on him?
I don't. It's too small for me to see on my end.
Well, when you actually pull it up on Junior Hockey Advisor, it's a guy with a lie detector unit hooked up. somebody giving him a lie detector test. So that was our podcast or our live stream last night. Was let me turn that off now. Yeah, still looking for the new buttons. We'll be fine. There we go. So it was. when I put that together, I'm like, I was thinking interrogation. We gotta get something. I thought lie detector. So I found a picture of a guy getting a lie detector test. So you can find that at Junior Hockey Advisor on our YouTube page. And if you go there and watch it, like and subscribe and enjoy it. It was actually a really good broadcast last night with a lot of good information. So anyway, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Go first?
Why don't you go first since you're in the higher league? You go first.
Well, debatable on the higher league, since this is a league that has never been qualified for any level by any governing body.
Tier 2.5, Jeff.
By their definition, they are a tier 2 league. And I'm fine with that, but I'm not fine when you compare it to the leagues that really play at that level. Okay, so I guess I got to go back to my screen again, which I'll do. Boom, pull it up. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're looking at, where the standings are right now. We covered this before. North and South. North, New Hampshire on top, and Jersey on top of the South. Look, this is New Jersey's to lose. Why? Why in the NCDC is this New Jersey's to lose? First of all, let's go all the way over to the right there. I don't know if you can look and see that on the right. As happens a lot, it's a long season. New Hampshire, they're playing 500 ball as far as wins right now. Northern Cyclones are below 500 on that North Division, so they're not coming in hot right now. The Boston Advantage in third place, they're still keeping it going, and the South Shore program's doing a good job there. But drop down, that's why I don't think there's heat there. Now you go down to the Hitman and Pal, they're still humming away, man. They're both still humming away. 7-2, 0-1 for Hitman, and 7-1, 0-2. I still think getting out of the South Division is where this championship's going to be won at. I think both those teams are they're hot. 70 points for the Hitmen, 61 points for the Pal Islanders. You go up and look at New Hampshire and the Northern Cyclones, we don't even know if those two teams are going to be the final top two teams in the regular season play, because the top four teams in the North, going all the way down to South Shore, they're only a couple points away. First place, 56 points. Fourth place with the South Shore program, 53 points. You don't know. They're battling. They're grinding. It's kind of like when you watch car racing, you watch NASCAR, and they always talk about when two cars get into a race, how they have to use so much energy in that one individual race that the rest of the cars can all catch up to them. So if these teams are grinding out, I think the South just has an advantage because their two top teams are the top teams. Nobody's going to catch them. Mercer and Rockets hockey are not catching. They're just not catching the Hitmen and the Pale Islanders. I think it's going to carry through the playoffs. So I'm picking, coming out of that South, I'm picking Hitmen. I think that they've got an established championship program there. They have for years. Their coach, Toby, their general manager, their ownership, they've all been around for multiple Deneen Cups over the years, and they get it. They know how to do it. They know how to put together a championship program. That's not to say that Pal can't jump up there and knock something off. I just think it's going to be hard because you got teams that you got a team that just is it's embroiled in championship DNA, and that's why I think I'm going with the Jersey Hitmen across the board. Clearly it's the easy pick. Clearly it's the safe pick. But hey, they're on a 7-0-0 run right now, and nobody else in the league has got that kind of run going. The second best run as far as their streaks go. You look up at the top, and that's all right there on the right. You can see that over in the streak column right here. I'm making my little cursor jump up and down. Hey, up in the North Division, the best streak going is a 2-0 streak, and that's by the Boston Advantage. You go down in the South, and the next best streak is the Pal Islanders at 3-0. But you look at the streak that the Hitmen have, they're 7-0-0. I don't like that fourth, man. I like it. We used old school. It was just, win, loss, tie. that was easy. But anyway, they're 7-0 right now in the last 7 games. That's a good streak. That's going to carry them momentum wise, and even their past 10, they're 7-2-0-1, and their past 10, it's second or third, right in that range for the whole league as far as their past 10 games. They're hot. They're ready for a championship. Any questions?
Yeah. No questions, but historically this team is usually top heavy, where there's a handful of programs that are like the perennial powers. The Hitmen are always one of those, and some of the other teams that used to make up that top part of the league are having a more of a down year, whether that's because they went young this year or whatever the case may be. So it has allowed some of the other teams that usually don't get to be in the runnings to make the playoffs or to even make a run in the playoffs. But there's usually a difference between those top teams and then the middle of the pack to the bottom of the pack. And the Hitmen haven't lost any steps, and the roster that they put together is really impressive. So they are going to be very difficult to beat. And as you saw how they went through the regular season, yeah, they dropped a couple games throughout the season. I'm sure, travel plays a part. I'm sure just, not being prepared because you think you can show up and win, because in many cases they can. And you drop a game here or there. But when they're dialed in and focused in on the playoffs or a championship, they are going to be so incredibly hard to beat. But who knows? Maybe somebody sneaks in and is able to take them down.
Well, I just think that if that's going to happen, it's going to come from the Pal Islanders in their own division, who are put up a really respectable year. And just by looking at everybody and watching these two teams, I did not watch either of these teams this last week, but I've watched them all year long. And I honestly think that you're in a good spot to see that team in the finals and win it all. So, I mean, I know it's not a long, elongated, analysis of the whole league, because I don't think you really need to. Utica's in the bottom, and they're going to stay at the bottom. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to that program, but come on, guys. There's just so much you can do, and so much you can say about this program or the whole league in general. Utica and the Islanders. Remember, there's the Islanders that are out of the North Boston, South New Hampshire area, and then there's the Pal Islanders. There's 2 Islanders in the league, and the one that's going to make it is the Pal Islanders, and the other Islanders program's got 37 points. They're actually the worst team in the league right now. We spent more time talking about it. I think the big shocker this year, though, in that league is the Boston Junior Bruins.
Yeah,
the Boston Junior Bruins have kind of shocked everybody with their fall off. Sometimes you'll see them get out of first or second place, drop into third, but to be fighting for the last place spot in the whole league, that's not the Boston Junior Bruins brand. I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know either. Something to look into. I don't know, like I said earlier, if they went young and are looking to kind of work a group of kids into where they're back where they used to be, but they never really had to make the decision to, hey, we're not going to be one of the top teams this year. We're going to go young and try to build to be a top team. They're always the top team. So they just reload with really good players and things like that. So I'm not sure what had happened, if, the staff changed or anything like that. I'm just not as familiar with it.
I pull out the roster and let's just count 02s and 03s. 1, 03, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Not including goalies, but as far as forward and D, there's 13 02s and 03s in that team, which is usually your veteran age, age out year and then the year before. So I'm not really 05s and 06s. Yeah, they got. They've got I like how they do this where it's not sortable. I'd love it if they would. It's just not. I don't like these websites that just don't let you sort your information. I'm a stat geek. But 05s and 06s, they've got a couple. They're running an 05 on as a forward, 1, 2, 3, and that's not uncommon for them. They got 3. I don't know if it's that. It might be talent. It might be, that they didn't get enough out of their older veterans. Maybe a couple guys, got injured or hurt that we don't see right now on that roster. But it's just not typical for them at all, in my opinion.
It could be. I mean, they do like to stay local, and maybe there's some leaner birth years that are coming through right now from those Massachusetts programs that they like to keep.
Yeah, I do. I think I've told the story before. I know I've told you, but we got decimated in the Rochester market when the Boston Junior Bruins started, and this is not with the current two brothers that run the program, but with their father. They literally came into our market and probably grabbed 10 to 15 of our top players immediately, and used those players to build their midget and their junior program. This is going back in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s. I'd say somewhere between like 99 and 2001, 2002, in that period of time. And so, they have changed their philosophy lately, but before they'd come in and basically pillage the village and take whatever they could get, So anyway, that's it for my report. What do you got, man?
Let's talk about the NA3.
Let's talk about the NA3.
This is
talking about the NA3.
This is a level that I've got a lot of my former players kind of sprinkled across the league, so I'll try to stay as unbiased as I possibly can as I talk about the different teams. But I may give a few of my guys some shout outs.
You hear the dog whining in the background?
Yes.
Okay, that's because I'm watching my son's. He's okay. Come here. You want to get on camera? Come here. Come here. Come on. It's a big dog. At least it's a big dog. Come on. Now he's not going to come up. There we go. I don't know if we can get him in the screen here.
Okay. Yeah, we see a paw.
There we go. Almost. This is what I'm watching today. I'm watching the little mutt. He likes to be. So, this is Oakley. This is my son's dog. I think every kid in college on his hockey team had at least one dog.
Of course.
Not the way it used to be. But anyway, he's a good dog. He's just a little bored in my studio. But I'm watching him while my son works his internship. So, all right. So if he makes
I heard that whine, and I thought for sure it was you that was doing that whining.
Well, that could be too. At times I do whine. But that's Oakley. Oakley's the studio pet. He's bored though. He's been with me because unlike you that gets up at 9 o'clock and says, I got to start working now. I've been down here for hours preparing myself, and he's had to be with me. So come on.
No wonder he's bored.
Getting up earlier in the morning.
No wonder he's bored.
Okay, you can't scratch the door down. Yeah. All right, come on. Let's keep going.
All right, so let's look at the NA3HL. We'll first go through the different standings, talk about some teams, and then I'll give some of my predictions. So,
love to hear it.
Yeah, well, if you can share my screen.
Oh, you want me to help you out here?
Yeah, we're gonna try it so that way you're not
look at that
doing all of the controls.
Look at that.
Let's see if I can expand that so people can see better.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect. Now it's just ginormous on my side. So the first division here, this league has 5 different divisions. And, for those that aren't familiar with how this process works, the top 4 teams from each division are basically going to be playing against each other, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. And then they're going to work it to where there's an actual winner of a division. Once that winner of the division is identified, then those teams, the top teams from those divisions, are going to go to wherever the site is where they're going to have the Fraser Cup, playoffs. That's when that really starts. Sometimes it's in Blaine. We've had it here in Chicago before. I think this year it's in St. Louis. So what you're first working on is advancing out of your division. When we look here at the Central Division, we have 4 teams. They've already identified themselves as who's making the playoffs. There's really no opportunity for anyone else to jump up and grab a playoff spot. And what you'll see too, and I'll get into the predictions a little bit later, but there's typically a lot of movement that happens once these playoff teams kind of establish who's in and who's out, where they do a nice job across the league of, if any of the non-playoff teams have any O2s that are in their last year of junior eligibility, they'll try to make a move to get that player onto a team that's going to be in the playoffs. So that way, for their opportunity to continue to get more exposure and colleges to watch them and things like that, they'll end up continuing to be able to play.
Well, it's a win-win in a couple ways there, Mike, because, and they're not the only team that does this. This is a good practice for a lot of junior hockey. I know the Null does it. I know you'll see it up in the in some of the CJHL leagues too. And here's why: there's twofold good. It's good for the player because they get to move on, get more exposure, especially if they get to Blaine or wherever the finals are going to be held, and they make the top 4 teams, because there's going to be a ton of colleges there watching them play, and it's a chance to get picked up there. So if you're a low-level player that gets traded at the end of the year, quote, change. If you're on a low-ranked team in the playoffs or in the league play, and you get traded at the end, you're not a low-level player. You're getting moved because you're a last-year player. That's a good thing. I wouldn't look at that as a negative as a parent or as a player. But here's the other thing. That team is going to end up getting either a young player back during the trade, or they're going to get something for next year. They're going to get a draft pick, or they're going to get a tender, or whatever the deal is made. So if they get a better, younger player that comes back to that team the next year, or a tender or draft, those are all good things. That means that last place team or second to last place team, depending on how many in the division, get a chance to get better. So I see this as a complete win-win across the board.
Yep. And you'll notice too here where some teams that did make some trades and get, some good older players have really gotten a shot in the arm. And, teams like Rochester, who's historically for this division pretty much the team to beat every year. They have their relationship with the Austin Bruins, and, for lack of a better term, it's an affiliate that they're moving players up and down through each program. So if a kid comes down from the NA, that really helps those different programs. So you'll see this is going to be a theme as I go through the different divisions, that any of the programs that are connected with the North American League team, as these roster cutdowns happen, it can really impact the NA3 team when some of these NA players trickle down. So when we look at Oregon has a real feel of, they have a lot of team Wisconsin AAA players that make up this team. They also have a group of the Janesville Jets AAA program that have kind of all came and played for this Oregon team. So, anytime you have a team of mostly AAA kids, you're going to have a pretty successful team. So, when we look at this division, I think it's going to come down to Oregon versus Rochester for who's advancing out. I honestly think Rochester is going to be the team that does advance out, because when I look at a couple of the players that they had drop down from the North American League, I think it's going to help them move, into more of the driver's seat. So, when we look at their roster itself and we just kind of look through some of the different players, again, both of these teams are really good. They're littered with AAA talent. But when you start looking at some of the players that, have fallen down from the North American League, you'll be able to see here by how many games they've played and then just the impact that they've had early on. So if we look here, Luke Jack, 12 games played, 9 points. We look at where he's been playing, and he's got 21 games in the North American League for the Minnesota Wilderness. So you add a kid of his ability coming down to really give this program a shot in the arm. If you're a program that had a really good, successful regular season, but you didn't quite get some of the North American League guys that have fallen down, these other teams are going to have an advantage, because some of these players, there's a big difference between a kid that put up, 5 points in the North American League to, maybe somebody that put up, 30 points in the NA3.
Right. And you can tell that because if you looked at his stats since he's joined the team, he's already doubled his production from the Null. in half the games. So you're seeing a kid that's should make a huge impact there. So that's a good call that you might not see in other leagues. You won't see that in the NCDC because in their organization, they're the top team. You won't see that in the NAL, and you won't see that in the USHL because where the player's going to drop down from. So
Right.
although the USHL does get a few, not all the time, but they do get some Division I kids that play a semester and go, this is not what I wanted, and drop back into the USHL. And it's enough that you see it every year. I just don't know. I haven't tracked it this year to see who dropped back in, but it's common there. But great point and good information, Mike.
Yeah, I think, and again, if we're just going to pick a team, for me, it's going to be Rochester. They're going to advance out of this division. I give Milwaukee and Peoria credit. They're gritty. They both, Milwaukee had a bunch of different trades that they made to acquire older players. That's going to help them. You can see here their streak is, they're 8-0. The last 10, they're 9-1. They're not a team to sleep on. This division itself is really strong. Like, any team can beat any team. But again, if we're going to pick who's going to stand the test of time to get out of this division, for me, it's going to be Rochester.
Well, that's interesting. I like the momentum Milwaukee has. That's going to be really fun to watch to see who comes out of that division. I hope every series goes all the way. That's what I'd like to see. Yeah,
and my underdog, I'm rooting for Peoria just because we've got some kids that I coached on the team. Hank Griffin. He's a great kid. Hopefully he has an impact in this playoffs, but he's in his first year of junior hockey eligibility, so he'll get better as and more impactful.
He played for you?
He did, yeah. So he's got to work through all the issues I created for him
if he played for you, I pray for him.
Anyway, let's move on to the East. The East division here, you can see is very top heavy with the Northeast Generals pretty much running away not only with the division, but they're running away with the league. They they're
19 straight games. Holy smokes.
They're a dominant team. Again, they have a North American League team. So, anytime you see these teams that have that affiliation with an NA team, whether it's a same ownership or a direct affiliation, typically they're going to have stronger programs because, those players that wanted to play on the NA team or maybe even started on the NA team, ended up on the NA3 team and they're trying to work their way back. So This is a prime example of that type of a scenario where when you look at their roster, they've got some really good players on their NA3 team, and they're running away with it. Not only from a goals for standpoint, but a goals against standpoint. They're really firing on all cylinders and are going to be very difficult to beat. Again, when you look at the actual roster you look at the regular season and they're doing a great job of continuing to put up points and they've got good players and things like that. But then you're going to still see the kids that come down from the North American League. So the first player I'll point out here is Phil Feinberg, Minnesota kid. He's played in 11 games. He's already got 24 points. So this is a guy that played 16 games for their NA program. And, didn't really put up the points. He's in his first year.
But that's a good lesson learned too, though. Pull it back up there. Leave it right there for a second. 16 games, and he had 1 point. Okay, now we don't know what kind of ice time he was getting. We don't know all the details. But he had 16 games. Then he drops down and he plays in 11 games for 24. If you don't know the difference between, how much of a step up it is, and most people think it's a one step up from the NA3 to the NAL. It's not. It's 2.5 steps up between the NA3 and the NAL. And that's where people sometimes just, I was the leading scorer of this team. And they go from being an NA3 superstar, and maybe they got 60, 70 points. And all of a sudden they get up to the next level. When they're bigger and stronger the next season, you think, maybe let's see how it carries over. It rarely carries over. No matter how good you are at the NA3 level, it's a big, big step up to the next level.
Yeah, great point. And obviously the success that somebody like Phil is having here, it could lead to him having more confidence. And then when he gets the opportunity again next year, he does more with it. He's just a little bit more adjusted and whatnot. So a lot of good can happen.
Next year, he's got a null resume. So maybe that does carry over where another team gets it because he's doing so good in the NA3, and they look into him a little bit and they go, holy smokes, he's even gotten all games already. So good luck to him. Hopefully that does pan out for him. Okay, so you got them in that division. What do you got next?
Yep. So let's back it up here. Now we're getting into the Frontier division. So, this division has come a long way over the years, and they're really starting to make a name for themselves. I think when they went to the Blaine Showcase, where they kind of have those cross division games and whatnot, the Frontier division had the best record of all the divisions coming out of that weekend. So they're definitely on the rise. And Helena and Gillette were the two teams that made the most noise that weekend. And obviously you can see here they've continued to make separation within their own division. So, just to kind of call out those two programs specifically, they do have a lot of last year junior eligible players. So that's going to really give them an advantage, especially going through their division. But it's also what helped them be successful in that cross division classic that they have up in Blaine. So, typically this division, people don't think, hey, they're going to advance out and really have a shot to win the whole thing. This year, I think that isn't going to be the case. I think both of these teams can compete with any of the different programs and divisions coming out of, these different areas. And it's going to be really difficult. I really struggled to figure out between Helena and Gillette which team I thought was going to advance out. I'm still not confident in my answer, but it's like, you and I, when we go through this, we look at goals for, goals against in the differential. When you look at Helena, they're not scoring as many goals, but they're doing a better job of playing team defense and keeping it out of their own net. And then you got Gillette, who is scoring at a much higher clip, but also is giving up more goals. So it's like, it's so hard to pick between these two teams. So, the only thing I'm going to say, and they didn't get as many of the North American League drop downs to where I can apply the same kind of metrics or advantage that I've been given the other ones to these different programs. But, they're so closely matched that, I think if I had to pick, I'm going to pick Gillette, just purely on the fact that I know some of the players that play on that team, and I think they're really good players, and I know that they can step up in big moments. Well, I don't know them because I coached them. I know them because I scouted them.
Okay, and, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and that's the only reason why I would pick Gillette.
I still think you're biased. Okay, go back to that division for a second, because this is even more important than the playoffs. This is something that, Frontier division, come on, some of the coolest places on the planet in that Frontier division.
Yes.
Just right in the heartland of just cool towns. Come on, can you tell me why in the world? Scroll that up just a little bit so we can see that whole list.
What do you mean? Oh, you mean all the teams?
No, just that one division, but move it up a little on the screen. Okay, so you got that whole division, and let's look at nicknames. Badlands Sabres. Are you kidding me? You're going to waste Badlands by throwing Sabres on it? You could be the Badland, Amigos, or the Badland, anything that ties into the area. Yellowstone Quake, I can give you that. Great Falls, come on. Great Falls of Fire, okay? Great Balls of Fire. And goodness gracious, play with that name a little bit. Bozeman, come on. That's got something to do with the great outdoors, the West. Butte Cobras. Is there even a Cobra within 100 miles of Butte? Come on, let's go back and play with these names. Let's get some old West in these names. Sheridan Hawks. I just think that's a lame. Come on. This division should have some of the. Helena Bighorns should be the lamest name in there, and I get it. Bighorns, it works, But Gillette, come on, why not call them the Shavers? Do something, I don't care, but you got to have some kind of, put some character into these names. What do you think? Are you agreeing with me, Mike?
I don't think I agree with you. You're going down a path that I'm not even sure makes sense, but
what do you mean? If
you're
gonna
talking
have
about
a name
how
like
nice
a
of an
franchise,
area it is. You talk about how
franchise, come on.
You talk about how nice of an area of the country it is, and to try to tie it in with the area, and you say the Gillette Shavers, it doesn't even make sense.
There, it's better than what they got now. Come on, you got all these great cities in the great area of the West. You got to tie into the area more. So that's my worst, my least favorite division. I don't care how good the teams are. Next.
Well, I would say that, to your point, the area of the country that is in, like all these different teams make up, what a cool area to actually go and play hockey in, and be a part of that area for 2 to 3 years, because it really isn't an area of the country that most people are just going to plan to go and visit. You kind of fly over those areas on your way to some other areas. But
so just to keep this going for a second, drop down to your south, bring your south up. I know we haven't picked the winner for that south yet. Now let's talk about this a little bit. Okay. Brahmas, Roadrunners. Right away, you think about Roadrunner on TV. You think about you're getting chased. Louisiana Drillers. Come on, that's cool. The Ice Wolves. If you know anything about New Mexico and wolves, and they've tied it in with their logo. Atlanta, it's the capital, so that makes sense too. El Paso Rhinos, I'm not sure about that. And the Austin Ice Bats. That if you know anything about Austin. They're like the biggest city where they got like 7 billion bats or something there that live under that bridge. So it ties right in. Mid-City Stars, you can go. They should put the Mid-City Stars up in that other division. Lame name, Mid-City Stars. Come on. All the other names in that division are cool.
Isn't there a tie-in, though, with the Dallas Stars?
I don't care.
Their logo is basically –
I don't care. It's lame.
Well, anything to please you, Jeff.
There you go. Who do you got in this division?
So this division, the Texas Roadrunners have really been the top of this division almost up until like the last few weeks. And in the last few weeks, the Brahmas have kind of gone on a surge and have caught them a little bit. But it's going to come down to these two programs. And Texas, the Roadrunners have done a great job throughout this year. They've got some really good players. They've got a kid in his first year of junior eligibility. I'll pull up the roster here. Ivanov, who I was a huge fan of. I had to play against him for a couple years, and he tore us up every time. And he's not even missed a beat. Goes into junior hockey, and he's just shredding it. So, he's a kid that is dangerous every time he's on the ice. They got a kid, Jack Heron, Tyler Love. A lot of these guys played in the top prospects game and have done very well. So they're
drop downs on this team that's helping them.
So they don't have the drop downs like the Brahmas have received, and that's where I think the difference is going to weigh out. Is going to be who from the Brahmas that came down from the North American League that's already made an impact on their roster. The Brahmas have also made probably about 4 trades that have acquired 6 different players, again, of O2 status that has helped them out, because they were a younger team through most of the year. And this has kind of slotted, the different players on that team in a better way, where they're not playing a little bit over their skis for where they're at.
So right now you're on the other team's roster, aren't you? You're not on the Brahmas roster, are you?
No, this is still the Roadrunners.
Okay.
When we look at the Brahmas, and that's where we're going to, basically talk again about some of the drop downs that they've had. We look here, let's see, Bo Kralovic, he's played 7 games already, 6 points. Again, he's played 19 games in the North American League for the Lone Star Brahmas. He's dropped down, and he's, pretty much a point per game player. That's a huge impact. That's a big shot in the arm for a program to have a kid that had played most of the year already in the North American League. Then you look, and there's another player that's a drop down, and if I can find his name here, McRoberts, as a defenseman, he's played 5 games. He's got 5 points already. and he's played not as many games, but he had been up in the North American League for, part of this year. Again, that's an advantage because he's been practicing and playing in a much higher league, and now comes down and is going to be one of their top players. So, in the end, if all things were equal, I probably would say that the Texas Roadrunners would have come out of that division because of some of the drop downs and some of the trades that the Brahmas had made. I'm going to pick them to advance out of the division. And it's not me being a homer as much as it is the acquisitions and the different players that are now on the roster that weren't before.
Very good. Very good. Brahmas. A purple cow is always going to help you draw fans. Now that's cool. That's cool.
Did you realize that in the XFL they have a Brahmas team now, the San Antonio Brahmas?
Well, they should. They should. Better than having the San Antonio Cowboys. There's already a football team named the Cowboys. Be original. What do you got in this next division?
All right, so the last one here, the West Division. Granite City is usually one of the top programs every year. Again, this year they're showing to be that. Alexandria had a really good weekend in that crosstown competition in Blaine. They're an older team. They're definitely going to put up a fight and create some problems for Granite City. But when we look at this division, there's not going to be a whole lot of competition in the early rounds of this between, Wilmar or Mason City. They're just not going to be able to compete with these two teams. So it's going to come down to these two for who's going to advance out of the division. And, again, kind of applying some of the similar, metrics to this whole thing. Alexandria, in my opinion, got better players to kind of give them that push. So, a couple of guys that I'll highlight here is, let's see, where is Jack?
Jack Carter?
No, Jack Whitmore. Again, 11 games played so far in the 3, and he's got 15 points. He played, most of this first year. He's played for St. Cloud. He also
didn't get many games there, but he's practicing with that Null team all the time, which is going to make a huge difference. Playing against bigger, stronger, faster players. Don't look at the games played necessarily. Look at the fact that he spent 4 months, 5 months, practicing every day with that group.
Well, the other thing you have to look at is last season, he played the whole year in the North American League for St. Cloud in New Mexico. And then in the previous year, so we're talking 2 seasons ago, he played 30 games in the North American League. So, he's a kid that's got more experience in the North American League than he does in the 3HL. So him coming down to the 3HL is a huge advantage for this program to have him for their playoff run. So, he's going to be a huge difference maker. There's a couple other players here just to highlight that have kind of gone down the same path. We look at Hayden. Hayden played, a couple games here for Minot and the Minnesota Wilderness to kind of get that same experience that we're talking about. Again, last season he has had some games, so he's been up at the North American League level again longer than he's been at the 3HL level. So he's coming down, and it's tough for any of these teams that didn't get these types of players to give them that playoff push to be able to compete with a roster that has that caliber of player on it. So, again, when we look at how these different teams are going to advance out of their division, I think the key in all of my assessments are who got the drop downs that are going to help propel them out of their division. And then they're all going to end up in St. Louis playing against other teams that have also gotten that same advantage. And that's where you're really going to see who's going to, rise to the top amongst those teams. And without being a homer, I'm not going to pick the Brahmas to be that team that comes out of it. I think the Northeast Generals are going to be a team that's going to be really difficult to beat, not only because of the way their roster was before the drop downs and the caliber of player that they had, but then they did get that shot in the arm. And then I think that, there's going to be a case to be made for Rochester with the players that they got. And I think if Alexandria makes it out, they've got some really good players that they picked up from the North American League that I think it might come down to Alexandria or the Northeast Generals to be the team that wins it all.
I'm very interested to watch this because that little bit of insight you gave, I really want to see what an influence it has. We'll have to check back in more so on this than the other divisions of Tier 3 has, that intriguing element of how much you can influence a roster by players that have spent the year playing and practicing with a higher league. You don't see it as much in the EHL. You could argue you see it a little bit in the NCDC with their drop downs to the USPHL Premier, but the NCDC Premier, you're talking about what's the NCDC have 12, 13 teams. I forget what the number is.
Yeah,
but Premier's got 90 teams or whatever it is. Seems like 1,400, but so it gets a little bit watered down when the players move down versus these teams with these direct connections in all the NA3. You can really see some impact there. So that's interesting, Mike. Well done. Now I feel bad. I feel like I got to go back and do a whole different take on mine. I was just going on my gut feeling, what I saw on the ice, how they played. You did much more of an analytical thing, and that kind of irritates me because I like to be the analytical guy,
Well, I think it's just a unique situation within this league where when you look at the USHL, and I kind of use the same method when I was talking about which teams I thought were going to advance out based on who improved through trades, when they beefed up their team for their playoff push. But all those teams that made those moves, they're still getting players that played within the league. Right. This is a scenario where these kids have been playing in the North American League, which is a much harder, faster, it's just it's just a different level. It's a different level than the NA3.
Yep.
So to get players down from that level, it's a huge advantage. If they just traded guys within their league and they beefed up on some O2s that have been playing NA3, that is an advantage. But to get kids that have been playing up at a higher level coming down for that playoff push,
yep,
that's just something that if you didn't get that advantage, you didn't get some players in that manner, it's going to be hard to beat the teams that did.
You picked out a few players in those examples that I think in their first year in the North American League, they got married and had kids, and right now they're watching their kids graduate. So, well done. I liked your picks. I'm not going to choose anybody. I'm just going to let it see. I want to just not have a team. I just want to enjoy it and see what happens there. Well done.
Awesome. I think when you talk about the NCDC, you could be basically taking either the hitman to win it all or the field and be okay with that with that assessment, because that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I agree, and it is what it is. I just think you've got a program that's pretty darn strong. I don't want to take anything away from the Pal Islanders. They too are an established program. They're one of the original programs coming over from the EJHL. They've got great management. They always have. They care about their program. I like their program. I just don't know. Toby's got all kinds of tricks up his sleeves as the head coach of the Hitmen, and it's hard to beat a guy that's been at the championship caliber with that program for over a decade. It's just hard to. It's hard to get up for one series when a guy's got 80 or 90, maybe 100 championship playoff runs over that period of time. There are games, over that period of time. So, well, listen, that covers it all. I think next week we better jump into maybe the EHL and let's grab two of the CJ teams. You want to do the AJ and the BCHL and the EHL next week?
Well, we did the EHL already, so we can.
That's right.
Yeah, we can do BC.
We need to do three because we're never going to get the playoffs are going to be 3 months over if we don't pick up a couple more leagues here. So let's do AJ, BC, and what do you want to pick up for the other one?
CCHL.
CCHL, yeah, and I don't think we're going to cover a couple leagues. I don't think we'll do Quebec, the Maritime, or the SIJHL. Just not enough time spent by anybody watching those. And there's a couple of those leagues where I don't even know if. Yeah, never mind. I don't want to say anything negative. Yeah.
Well, I will say before we jump off, for a lot of people that are watching, the NA3 and the NCDC are two leagues that I think people tend to overlook and they don't really follow or look into until they have to, meaning they're thinking I'm a USHL player or I'm a North American League player until they realize that maybe they aren't. And then they start trying to figure out, okay, now where should I play and what are the different programs? This is a great time for these different families or even the players to start watching this level because it's really good hockey. If you're,
totally agree with you.
You take our program, for instance, if you're going to watch them, if they match up and play the Roadrunners, to see how good both of those programs are in the level of play, I think would blow a lot of people out of the water. They would say, I can't believe this is NA3 caliber hockey because it is such good hockey. And the players that are playing in it for the most part are AAA players that people just don't realize that. And I think this would be a great opportunity for any person that isn't familiar with the league to get in and start watching it and see what it's like. And the NCDC is no different. Like to see what that level looks like, it's going to open a lot of people's minds and it might start making people start thinking about these different divisions and leagues. If it is a place that they end up having to play, they're already ahead of the game on maybe where they might want to go and what they've liked and seen from watching them.
It's very similar to, D1, D3, and ACHA club hockey. Speaking of club hockey, North Carolina last week, did you see the crowd they had for their outdoor game for a club hockey game?
It was crazy.
20 grand, 20,000 people?
Yeah.
Think about that. In their normal rivalry when they play indoors, 6,000 to 8,000 people for that game. North Carolina State and North Carolina, UNC and North Carolina State. So I got to be honest with you. I know players that play at USHL null level that were talking about that over the weekend about that game, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind playing there just for that reason."
Yeah.
When else are you going to play a college game where you're in front of that kind of crowd or any kind of game?
Well, I have a guy that I coach with who played in the North American League, and when it came down to where he wanted to play in college, he had a lot of Division III NCAA offers and things like that. He chose to play college club for Ohio University because that university goes all in on their club program, and it's usually one of the top D1 club teams, and it's a bigger college atmosphere, so you get more of that experience and whatnot. And people are like, well, why would you play club hockey? And it's like the advantage that he got playing Ohio University club hockey was better than some of the Division III opportunities that he had. So there's guys that are playing in the North American League and elsewhere that will look to college club hockey at the D1 level because you're going to get something different than you would get from maybe a NCAA Division III opportunity.
Absolutely. And there's that's a topic we'll cover on a Monday night broadcast, but it was worth the comparison with what we were talking about here. Look, it was great. New format. We tried a new platform. This is pre-recorded, so you can put all the comments you want on there. We will respond to your comments or your questions. They just won't be answered live. We'll be glad to do that unless Mike wants to sit there when we broadcast this later today and stay live and answer your questions right away. I'm not going to be because I'll be driving and I'll have my mind on other things. Toes in the sand, you know the song, and you know the thing.
Well, so, I hope you enjoy yourself. It's a well-deserved little vacation for you. And just remember, once you're back, we're grinding. We got to make sure that we're identifying some top talent for next year.
I agree. I got it. I know, but maybe secretly while I'm down there, I'm actually having some work done. a little nose adjustment or, higher cheekbones. maybe they'll just get rid of my cough. That'd be nice too. The perpetual cough that's been around for a month and a half now. Listen, folks, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure if you like this, go to Junior Hockey Advisor YouTube page and like and subscribe. Go to Junior Hockey Live YouTube page, like and subscribe. I should say that first. That's the priority that we're trying to build on this one here. Leave your comments on here. We'll be glad to respond. There'll just be a little bit of a delay in the response, but enjoy it all. Good luck to all these teams in the playoffs, and I look forward to seeing how it all takes off. Mike, as always, thank you so much, and we'll see you when I get back.
All right. Take care, everyone.